Welcome, bet riders around the world. My name is Gary Solomon, and you're watching the Laid Back Bike Report. Well, happy April, bent riders. I hope you guys are starting to have a chance to get out there and start riding here in the Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere. Gosh, you've been doing it for a while. So let me tell you a little bit about the show today. Very excited to share the fine segments we have. We're going to kick it off with our pal Honza Galla, who has rejoined us. And he's going to give us all the recumbent news from the last month or so. So we look forward to that. We then have Ron Thompson, the designer of the G4. He has a racer that he is working on and is looking perhaps to get into production with various sorts of the G4. I think you'll find it fascinating. So look forward to having Ron on. And back once again with us is Innertuba, Jon Hodkin from the UK, but not for long. Jon is heading to the US again, and he will be touring up the Mississippi River and engaging a lot of other musical folks along the way, perhaps some other riders along the way. So we look forward to talking to Jon and his friend Nick, who is helping him in this travel. As many of you know, Spezi is back, a new location, new owners, and we are so excited to get to Germany and see all that is in store there. Had a chance to sit down with the new producers, owners of Spezi, and we will bring you all the details that we picked up from them a few days ago on how to attend, what we might see there, and just all the details you might need to know about Spezi and perhaps attend it. All right, let's see who the crew is that is here helping me today. I think we've got a good lineup of folks. First of all, out in Colorado Springs, who is still trying to find the rest of the crew. Oh, there he is, Larry Seidman. Larry, how you doing, pal?
All's good, Gary.
Good. And still down in Florida, I guess not much longer, is our sports director. He is Denny Voorhees. Hi, Denny.
I am Denny Voorhees, and hi, Gary. Great to be back. It's been a while.
Yes, it is great to have you back. And the media is all being handled today by the expert on staff, Trey Bourgoyne. Hi, Trey.
Howdy, folks. Glad to be here.
Yeah, there's a shot of, is that Raymond, Mississippi?
That is, on the Natchez Trace.
There we go. All right, thanks, Trey. And also with us today, back once more, is Honza Galla from the Czech Republic. Honza, glad to have you back, pal.
Hello, guys. It's great to be here with you again.
Okay, and here's a face we haven't seen for a while. We're really excited to have back. Sitting in his trike with his laptop. I don't know how you can do better than that. It is the bicycle man himself, Peter Stahl. Peter, how you doing, pal?
Doing good. Even got here early to get set up.
Yeah, you rolled in at like 10 seconds before we went live, which I have to say is at least 3 seconds.
I was almost late. There's a word for that. It's called on time. Yeah.
It's always great to have you, Peter. I'm really glad you're here. So, all right, guys. So with that, let me tell you about a couple of things I'd like to discuss with you. First of all, live chat. So if you're on Facebook or on YouTube, there's a comment section and live chat. So if you would like to participate by letting us know, first of all, where you're watching from, we always like to know that. You can make your comments. You can ask questions of our guests on the segments that you watch. All that stuff is available to you. Please take advantage of the live chat. Now, if you want to support us on the Laid Back Bike Report, if you like what we do, You can like us on Facebook. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. That's always helpful. And you can click that little white eye up there, and that'll take you to the Laid Back Bike Report website. And there you can learn much more about what goes on in terms of past shows, what shows are coming up. You can also click on a Patreon link and become a Patreon supporter for as little as $1 a month, like some of these guys have. We would always appreciate that. Now, we also have some amazing sponsors of the Laid Back Bike Report, and let me tell you about them right now. First of all, we have TerraCycle, makers of exquisite recumbent parts and accessories for your bent. Are your idlers idle? Upgrade to TerraCycle's lightweight and durable idlers for a smoother ride and fewer puns. And Trailside Trikes, a fine recumbent trike shop on the Withlacoochee Trail in Florida and Knoxville, Tennessee. And TerraTrike Green Speed, the best in leisure performance, adventure, touring, electric, and portability. Wherever your adventure leads, TerraTrike will take you there. And Green Speed, where Ian Sims designs bring performance through science and engineering. And Laid Back Cycles, the top USA dealer for TerraTrike and the premier source for CatTrike, Ice, and Green Speed. We give you the freedom to ride. And Avenue Trikes, with the gearing you need and the comfort you want, it's time to enjoy riding again. They're in stock, ready to ship in only $19.95. Dealer inquiries are welcome. And Azub. This company is a 3-time winner of the Trike of the Year award and has brought several unique technological solutions to the world of recumbent bikes, including the titanium front suspension on the Tie-Fly trike. Combined with the tuned rear suspension, it provides its owner with absolute comfort throughout the ride. And Recumbent PDX. With a 150 trike inventory, Recumbent PDX is the West Coast's only cat trike megastore. We have over 20 trikes on our showroom floor just waiting for you to test ride through our beautiful Portland neighborhood. Call or email to schedule your test ride today. And Eco Cycles, leaders in electric assist and customer support, with a line of specialized conversion kits to retrofit just about any bent model out there. Check them out at cycles.eco right now. All right, guys, let's jump into the show with Honza Galla, who's going to give us the recumbent news of the month. Larry, let's have a look.
Hi guys, Honza Galla from Recumbent.news here. This time, I had few months that I was not really able to join you, to send a news report. So I'm really happy I can be here with you. And there are some news that has happened in the month of March 2023. The first news I reported about is about HP Velotechnik. We have already told you about the S-Pedelec speed machine, so the S-Pedelec two-wheeler. S-Pedelecs are bikes that can go up to 45 kilometers per hour. And they got an approval of a vehicle type for this bike. What does it mean? From what I understand, before all the recumbent bikes, either from HP Velotechnik or I know about Honza, they were approved as a model with certain configuration. But now HP received a vehicle type approval. What I understand, the way that they can somehow change the specification and it still has the parameters of the S-Pedelecs. So they don't need to ask the certification organization every time for the approval. So this is it. And I think it's there was quite some discussion around it, also on the Facebook forums under my post about it, whether such bikes should be allowed on cycling passes, or not. But I feel that, I have doubts about allowing such fast vehicles on ordinary bike paths, mainly because I also have small kids and I would be a little bit scared to ride with them among bikes that would be twice as fast or even or maybe even 3 or 4 times faster. But I see it as an important step towards greener future, let's say, towards more sustainable transportation, because you can go much faster, much quicker to work, let's say, or you can cover longer distances in a shorter time, and you don't really need huge cars and trucks for that purpose, to get 5 kilometers to work or to visit your parents or whatever. So I will have the speed machine for a review right after the Spezi show. So I will do my first review for Recumbent.news, and I will definitely share some experience with you, of course. The second news was about ASUP T3sec, which is a new model from ASUP. The base for that was the T320, which is already a small trike, but this one the T3sec is even smaller for riders from 135 centimeters roughly, which is 4 feet 3 inches, I guess, up to 180, which is centimeters, which is 5 feet 11, I guess. So it's a trike for fairly short riders with, adjusted things like shorter cranks and shorter front part and drivetrain options with internal 3-gear hub combined with standard 9-speed cassette. This one is from Stormy Archer. So it is really either a trike for short riders, adult riders, or it can be like a growing trike for, kids. So they start with 4 feet 3 inches and then 135 centimeters, and then the trike will grow with them up until the moment where you can even change from T3sec to T320 pretty easily, and it became a standard adult trike. So the high limit of the size of the person is basically unlimited. And then there was a third news, not so much related to recumbents, but to general cycling world, but it was a top news in the cycling world. Just a few days ago, SRAM announced what I called as a revolutionary delayer, rear delayer. They use the same name for it as before, so it's the Eagle system. The main difference is that the delayer does not use a delayer hanger. So it hangs, or you mount it, it's direct mount to the frame, to the axle of the wheel. And which is very interesting. It is very important for mountain bike riders, but because you get even more precise shifting, I think we will sooner or later see that system also on road bikes. But I understand that for many recumbent riders, it is not so revolutionary as it sounds or as they would expect from the title I have used. It was article that was visited a lot. People wanted to know what is so revolutionary, but there was one even more interesting article for you, and that was about the Peregrine, which is a carbon fiber dual 20-inch short wheelbase recumbent made in Switzerland by Birk. That is, Mr. Birkenstock is known for high quality, really perfectly produced recumbents, and this one is designed not by him but a guy called Charles Henry. And but I think people really liked my readers really liked the featured image with the bicycle really, disassembled to pieces when it was restored. It's all the story about not only the model as in general, but all about this one particular bike. So I still have two other interesting articles that I would like to mention, and that's the interview with Pat Franz, former owner of the TerraCycle, about something I find very interesting, and that's possible standardization of some recumbent parts, like maybe seats or headrests or racks or whatever, booms. And so I asked Pat about that, and he's answering that in an article that I posted in the middle of March. And another one interesting was a short interview, also a report about Stefan Boving and his solar bike trip with his wife and two dogs to the start of Sun Trip in 2021. So that has happened 1.5 years ago, but the report came out nicely this month, and I think you will find it interesting as well. And I wish you a good rest of the Laid Back Bike Report today, because now it's really everything from me. Enjoy. Bye.
All right. It's great to have you, Honza. Let's chat about a couple of things, if you wouldn't mind. I was wondering on that T-Trisec, the small trike. Your kids look great as ambassadors for that, by the way. Good job. So I think one of the big stumbling blocks for previous small trikes for kids is the cost, which for previous trikes, they're expensive and the kids outgrow them in a year or something, and then that's it, you're done unless you have more kids to use it. Now on the T-Trisec, I noticed that it's expandable. This is a big point that you made there. So you can amortize, you can spread that money that you spend out over a great number of years, perhaps even into adulthood. Is that a big part of what that trike is about?
Well, not really at the end. The main part is it was a project of my colleague who is taking care about the Czech customers, and also about the foreigner one, but mainly for the Czech customers. He had quite often issue to really fit a short rider or a kid on a trike, because we are, supplying quite some disabled kids or, yeah. So he wanted to have something shorter for that purpose. And then we realized we can simply, when we have it for the Czech and Slovakian market, we can simply offer it outside as well to all our customers, and the feedback was positive. So yeah, that's it. It's it is still it is basically same expensive as the T-Tris 20. So it is a standard price. It's not an KMX price or something like that. But the advantage is that you can really buy a recumbent trike, and then if I put it into an extreme, you can use it till the end of your life, maybe.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Because I've got a couple of those KMXs for my grandkids, which they love, but honestly, they're not going to fit very long in that. So yeah, I think that's a great idea. The other we got a question here, which I think you pretty much answered, but Mike Smith, his understanding about the HP speed machine, I guess it was, is now allowed to sell in all EU countries without separate certifications. Isn't that what your point was?
Not really. I have to say that I was making the video on Friday evening, Saturday morning, and I couldn't really ask again what it is all about, because I had some doubts as well. So that's why I told it is from how I understand it. And from this point is that, when you do a certification for the product, when you say it is, CE certification, or whether it is whatever, you have, what is it in English? That any approval, it's usually for the complete European Union. So I don't think this is the additional value to, or the vehicle type, but I may be wrong. I thought I would ask later once again.
Fair enough. All right, Honza. Anyways, I thought it was a very interesting report, guys. Recumbent.news. There's so much interesting stuff that Honza works very hard to put up there for you guys. So take advantage of Recumbent.news. It's a wonderful site. Honza, you'll stick around and we'll bring you back up for any comments or questions you have. And thanks for being with us today. So, all right, let's move along, guys, to our first segment. This is with Ron Thompson. Ron has been on the show before. He has a very intriguing designed recumbent bike called the G4, which he's going to talk about now and in some detail. And he talked about it in a show, I think last November, but he is moving along with plans to do some production. He also is working on a racing version. So lots of interesting stuff with this arm-assisted power that Ron talks about. I think you'll really get a lot out of this segment. So Larry, let's hear it from Ron. Guys, we are here with Ron Thompson of G4 fame. Generation 4 bicycle Ron is known for. He's been on the show a couple of times. Ron, it's great to have you with us. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Gary. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you, of course. So Ron is working, as always, on developing more on the G4. He has been doing a lot of thinking about how to put it into production in various ways, making a racing cycle out of it, perhaps. And I think at the end of this discussion, we are going to have a chat with our panel and you guys about what it takes to make a recumbent two-wheeler these days. What do you guys really want in one? And Ron will be interested, I think, in your thoughts on that. So with that, Ron, why don't we start the slideshow and you can talk to folks and let them know what you have been working on.
Thanks. That was a great introduction. It covered a lot of what I want to talk today, and all good. Hey, I'm excited about the race configuration. I talked about that just a little bit back in November when I did the speed test, and I want to really kind of go over that a little bit today. And then I want to talk about what really makes a great bicycle. And again, for a couple of reasons. With all this, I'm going to talk about a lot of things here today. So I as before, on www.g4bikes.com, I'll put all the slides, and they can be downloaded, and people can look at them. And of course, I've got an email, ron@g4bikes.com. Always happy to talk with people, and I hope we actually get a chance to do some back and forth as a result of this. Okay. Like I said, back in July of 2021, I introduced what a coaxial crankset G4 bike was. Then in November, we did a speed test, which kind of took my fleet of bikes and compared them for speed only. That introduced the race configuration, and I'll talk more about that today and show some nice pictures of it. But again, today I want to review what a G4 is and the G4 Sport, describe the G4 race. I want to summarize the speed test as kind of a point of departure, for some unanswered questions that were there. Specifically, speed's important, but there's a lot of other things that are important in a bicycle, and kind of what are they and how do they fit together? And that all kind of evolves to answer the question, what makes a truly great bike? And that's just a passion. I think we're all interested in that. And I'm hoping to get kind of some insights from other perspectives on that. Okay, this is the first overview of the G4, and I like to take kind of a historical perspective and say there's only been 3 generations of bikes in all of history. The first, the G1 in the upper right, is sort of the Draisine. It was patented in Germany in 1818, I think. It had kind of the Fred Flintstone method of propulsion, but allowed the rider to actually balance on 2 wheels, which was sort of a surprise to the people at that point. All right. Recognizing that you could actually balance a bike, the G2 was developed, where it's sort of the bone shakers, and they put pedals in the front wheel, and then technology kind of evolved and allowed the big high wheel, the suspended wheel design, that is the spokes rather, allowed that big wheel so you could really get some speed going with that direct gearing. Then, of course, the third generation was the current upright, which we use today, and I'll talk more about that. And then the G4. Okay, this lower right-hand line drawing is a kind of the second prototype I built, which just was the first one to sort of demonstrate G4 capability. And what that is it allows the seated rider to immediately apply substantial supplemental hand power as when standing to pedal an upright bike. And I'll talk more to that too. Now, some of the other benefits of recumbents are they're aerodynamically efficient. Okay, they're faster, easy to pedal. They're comfortable, and you don't have quite so hard to fall off the seat should that happen. The G4 also, having front-wheel drive, really provides some unique stability and control, such that you can use a front disc. But the bottom line to all that is they got to be fun to ride. I mean, you got to be integrated with the machine and enjoy the ride. Okay, this is the hand power, and this is complicated, and I won't belabor it, but it's a good review, I think, and I've tried to color code the chart to explain it just a little bit more. As when standing on an upright bike and pedaling, you rock the frame right and left into your pedal thrusts. By putting the crankset on the front fork, you can change the azimuth, about that same 15 degrees and achieve exactly the same effect, into the technical details, it's work input by reducing the perimeter distance your foot actually has to travel. But I think more significant is the torque input that you get, by actually pulling the crankshaft, the crankset crankshaft into the crank arm, in opposition to the pedal thrust, and adding a torque along with the work input associated with it. It's hard to separate the foot power from the hand power here, but I know when I start riding the G4s in this sort of a way, I can see on my Garmin power pedals that power rockets up 50% is not at all unusual. So that's significant, and you can feel it is the big deal. So I'm not sure that completely explained it, but I can tell you that we've been riding the bikes for a while, and they're fun to ride as a result of that, or at least in part as a result of that. This is a picture of the fourth prototype that I ride pretty frequently. I ride regularly, actually. This is a vacation that my wife Peggy and I did a year or so ago down on the Skyline Drive, and we got into the Blue Ridge Parkway a little bit. Fun all-around bike. Okay, I call it the G4 Sport configuration to kind of discriminate from the Racer, which I'm going to introduce in just a minute. Okay, this is the first real G4 prototype, I think. This is the third prototype, P3, and it was designed specifically in the front fork there to handle the stresses, okay, and the deflections associated with hand power input. The torsions about that steering axis are a big deal here, and this bike is designed specifically to manage that and kind of optimize hand power input. It's been a great bike. I still ride that in a regular way. I've got wide tires on it, I think 44 millimeters, that make it sort of a gravel bike and all-rounder and a little bit more cushy. It's just a nice bike to ride as well. Okay, another sort of a glamour shot of a different vacation down at the beach. This is, I think, near Rehoboth, Delaware, showing the routine use of disc wheels, okay, on this bike. And typically I ride it with a little bit of a pack on the back, kind of a day pack, which is kind of a nice light tour. Just a fun configuration. Okay, this is my wife, Peggy. This is the fifth prototype I built after 3 and 4 I just showed you, and she loves it. I mean, she's given up her upright bikes, okay, and rides this one exclusively. This is in a 100-mile Seagull Century that we like to do each October. She's not an aggressive rider, but she passes a lot of people on that bike. Speaking of speed, this is, I guess, Waterford Hills, I think back in 2021. And one of the spectators got a shot of this, and I just love this picture. It kind of, the G4 isn't an exact race bike, okay, but it does okay. And it kind of shows that a casual rider, okay, as I am, okay, can stay right with and maybe even ahead of an all-out racer. The upper inset, the jersey there too, is kind of another demonstration of the bike really is comfortable for the long haul, and it's reasonably fast. This was the 12-hour WUCA, World Ultra Cycling Association recumbent time trial for 12 hours, national championship back in 2021. And again, it was the bike that did that. It surely wasn't the rider. Okay, going to racing now. This is a picture from February of 2022, okay, at Sebring. I think Denny actually took this photo, and I like it because it kind of shows that Peggy's G4 and the new G4 Racer on the left. This is sort of an initial configuration. I had just kind of built this thing and got it painted up in time to go to Sebring, and I was still tweaking it for sure. But notice the big difference there is it's got indirect steering. Okay, those two, and I'll show them more in a minute. But the crankset is actually mounted right on the steering axis, okay, as Peggy's G4 is too. But the blue bike was set up first for very effective hand power input, okay. This bike had a problem with crank arms contacting the frame, which I'll show you how I fixed in a minute. But this is the G4 Racer. Now, this is a line drawing, better showing that same bike I was just on. And notice it's got a vertical steering axis, okay. Notice the mechanism there to give you the indirect steering, which puts the handlebars in exactly the right place for you, and again maximizes all the geometry as best I understand it for hand power input. The other thing too is there's no fork flop on this bike at all, which is kind of nice. It handles exactly like, or when you're pushing it, it pushes just like a standard bicycle, which is kind of a nice change. Okay. Now, I mentioned that by putting the crank right on the steering axis, it was really hard, okay, to pedal through a low-speed turn. As a matter of fact, you don't want to do it because you get contact. So here, what I did is I thought, well, I was afraid it was going to reduce the hand power input effectiveness, the efficiency of it. but I went ahead and extended that crankset out about 7 inches, I think, about a crank arm length. Okay, so it cleared everything. Well, it solved that problem. And in fact, I didn't think there was much difference in terms of the hand power input. There must have been, because the numbers kind of say there should have been some reduction, but it seemed to work real well. And as a bonus, there was a little less pedal force feedback too, such that when you were just cruising normally, I mean, it was less noticeable, the pedal impulses. So all good. And I think I learned a lot there that I can put into a next generation concentric crankset bike. Okay, here's that same bike, and it's in kind of the local club time trial race configuration with my sort of a duct tape and styrofoam fairing on the belly of it. But this bike has got probably several thousand miles on it at this point. It's not the bike I use most of the time, as I like the concentric configuration better. But this is significantly faster, as kind of we saw. We'll see in a minute. Okay, this is just a summary of the G4 race. Okay, on the P6 is the crankset and steering axis. Crankset on the steering axis. The lower left is P6.5, which has got the limited crankset offset. And in the upper right-hand corner, you can kind of see a top view of that indirect steering mechanism. Basically, the elevated pedals and the reclined seat really give you the aerodynamics that you need for speed. Okay, the elevated pedals, okay, rather than being in the middle of the front wheel, actually allowed use of a slightly more efficient single chain rather than the dual chains. The indirect steering and the vertical steering axis were all very important for hand power input efficiency. And as a bonus, the vertical steering axis actually gave real good low-speed stability, okay, and reduced the wheelbase just a bit. So P6 had the crankset on the steering axis, problematic frame contact, but maximized hand power input. 6.5, okay, fixed it. Good hand power still. Easy to ride now, although not as easy to ride is the lower crankset version, and reduced pedal force feedback. So it was a kind of a good exercise. All right, switching gears. All right, this is the speed test. 10 bikes at 200 watts, 8.5 miles of course for each of them, a circular course. And that course was rolling. Okay, it had about 325 feet of total climbing. My current fleet is pictured on the right, okay, and it's described on the left. You can go back to the November 2022 Laidback Bike Report and look at the whole presentation, or pull the slides off of my www.g4bikes.com. But those are the bikes, and there's a bunch of data on all of that. I think a point worth noting here is, of those 10 bikes on the right, there's really only 5 fundamentally different configurations. I would say that A, B, C, and D are all upright bicycles. I mean, there's some variation in those. And at one point in time, I would have said, oh my God, those are tremendously different. But from a 30,000 foot perspective, I think maybe those are one configuration of bike. Now, the E and F, okay, the classic long wheelbase recumbent of E and the short wheelbase recumbent of F, I think are fundamentally 2 different configurations. I mean, there's enough different about it that I characterize them as that. G and H are both G4 Sports, okay, same configuration, and I and J, the G4 Racer with slightly different fairings. So I make a point of that because I'm going to come back to that in some follow-on discussion. Okay, this is a summary of what those bikes did in terms of speed. And I found some surprises here. Okay, first, for reference, across the bottom are the 10 bikes just pictured on the preceding page. Okay, the red line, okay, is the speed of the 4 upright bikes that are noted below. And this bikes are all about the same speed, okay, from this distance. 0.8 of a mile an hour is what, 8 or 10%, something like that. Not huge differences. And I always thought that was a huge difference in the speed of a race bike and a mountain bike on the road, but not so. Conversely, the recumbents, which is the green line on the right, those speeds vary dramatically, okay, which was really sort of a surprise to me. And they were all fast, okay. The slowest recumbent was almost as fast as the fastest upright bike, okay, which I thought was sort of a revelation. But the big deal for today is the comments on the left. It was kind of work left undone from that first presentation. Okay, I talked about how surprised I was about how uncomfortable my old and beloved upright bikes were when I went back to them. Okay, the pain in the neck and the tush and the back and the hands. A couple of other things I found surprising is that it was really hard to see. Okay, on the recumbents, your head's up and looking around, and you can see down the road nicely. You can't see so well 5 feet ahead of you, okay, on the road. But I'd rather have the upright visibility rather than be staring at my front axle on a drop bar bike. Part and parcel to that is I was surprised at how nervous I was on the upright bikes, not being able to see behind me as well, okay, as I do on the recumbents. Specifically, the mirrors, okay, on the upright bikes are out of your normal line of sight, okay, such that you can't quickly glance down. Okay, you have to move your head a little bit to see where you've been. And being able to watch cars coming up behind you is really a comforting thing to be able to do. It's a safety thing too, but it allows you to really watch cars coming up behind you. And if they don't see you, you see them, and you can take evasive action, which is kind of a big deal. Going to the bent comments, okay, there's big differences in how they handled. Okay, it all makes a difference. So what I wanted to do then, okay, but wasn't able to, and I hope to start doing better now, is quantifying these differences. And I really want to understand that, because I want to know what makes a great bike, right? Now, I want to know what makes a great bike, because I'm thinking about creating a business to build and sell bikes. This is just sort of thinking at this stage of the game, but it's focused thinking. And in order to do that, I kind of joined a program that was sponsored by the National Science Foundation. Okay, it was really targeted on commercializing technology. Okay, and it's interesting is a minimum. I think it's very appropriate, though, for taking G4 technology, okay, and looking at how that might best be implemented in the future bicycles, and again, trying to commercialize that technology. I'll go over this kind of quick. That all started by talking with a lot of people, okay, trying to understand what people want and need in whatever product that you're looking at. I found it useful, and I'm hoping that this is a continuation of that. So I'm looking forward to the discussion, both today and in the future, okay, over email and YouTube comments. A couple of insights, I think. First is the upright bike market is huge, and it's highly segmented, and it's highly price competitive. Okay. Now the G4 is not an upright bike. Okay. For that market, which I think they sold like 17 million upright bikes in this country last year. But the G4 is just a radical innovation, and it's going to take a long time for something like that to permeate through, to replace that sort of a market, if it ever does. So that's discouraging. But on the other hand, I'm encouraged by the fact that there have been some innovations that have moved forward. Okay, for example, Rands at one point had the crank forward technology. Okay, well, Trek has adopted that in their Electra. Okay, which is actually a semi-recumbent, and that's been a fabulous seller for Trek. Okay, I've recently learned. Again, the Tadpole tricycles that a lot of us enjoy are selling like hotcakes, best I can tell. That's kind of crossed over into the mainstream or crossing over into a significant segment of the bicycle market as opposed to just a niche. And the electric drive is just dominating sales. Okay, over the last 10 or 15 years, they've come a long way, but now they've really become a very large market segment. Well, the recumbent market is tiny. Okay, best I can tell, and I would appreciate insights on this. But best I can tell, there's only about 100,000 of them in the country. Okay, I mean all time. So that's sort of a niche market. Okay, and I think though that the G4 fits into that very well. I think people understand that have ridden a recumbent what the G4 will do, and are I think it's a good market for to start with. I think what's most important about that, though, is it's a point of departure. Okay, as people see G4s on the street, okay, they'll like them. At least that's our experience, and maybe want one. And that's a way of kind of expanding the recumbent market that we enjoy, the recumbent sport that we enjoy, and so that more people can enjoy it. I think that's important because it allows people that aspire to ride, okay, and families, okay, that can maybe even share a bike. And I think it can bring more people into the market, and that's kind of what I'm about here. Next steps, to be determined. I mean, there's a long way to go here, and I'm learning a lot. But again, I wanted to start with some discussion amongst the recumbent community as to what thoughts were. Okay. What makes a really good bike? Okay, I think these three perspectives help a lot. Okay, it gives me a chance to kind of sort things out. I think first, operationally, what do you really want a bike to do? Okay, transportation, recreation, fitness, sport, not UCI racing certainly, but why do you want a bike? Okay, next question is, how does the bike do what you want done? And that's a lot of details on the performance of the machine. Physically, okay, is the last configuration, which is what we buy, okay, and that's lots of detail, okay, that's involved in actually building and selling. Those are sort of the dimensions that I think need to be worked through, but all falling down to the same thing, okay, enjoying the simple pleasure of riding a bike and helping the configuration evolve so that more people can do it. Okay, starting to conclude now. The sort of a historical perspective here too. The red box in the middle is sort of a summary of the problems with bicycles, both uprights and recumbents. Okay, I think we kind of know the uprights, and I'll let you look at that for just a second. But the recumbents, I think the big problem is you can't stand and pedal. Okay. Not just for the acceleration and climbing, but the rider engagement. Okay, I think it just makes it a different ride experience. And I think that the ability to apply hand power as the G4 is designed to allow is just kind of a big deal. Now, there's some other things there that some problems with recumbents that are good to overcome. But from a historical perspective, I found this interesting. Okay, the book on the left is an esoteric sort of a publication I think I got from the UK. But the inventor of the bicycle, is I would think of it anyway, is the Starley family. Okay, they had the Rover Cycle Company back in the 1800s. Okay? They were big builders of the G2 big wheel bike, and they actually developed the first safety bike, I think. Said in 1885, though, that, okay, the big deal about the safety bike is not that it's safer to ride, but that you can stand and pedal it, okay, which wasn't possible on the preceding generations. So big deal there. And to the right side, Gordon Wilson, okay, in his series of bicycling science books, really substantiated that. He said, substantial arm work is easily performed by standing and tilting the upright bicycle away from the descending pedal thrust. Recumbents don't permit this, okay? he said, people don't understand sometimes what standing actually does, but it really allows upper body engagement to supplement the lower body pedal input. I think this might be a key to why recumbents haven't achieved upright bike popularity. Now, the UCI ruling 75 or 80 years ago, too, didn't help things either, in that they essentially froze commercial innovation of bicycles, to only consider the upright configuration. So there's a real commercial impediment there to the adoption of new technology. But I think that kind of characterizes the problem. Now, with all that being said, there's a lot of information there, and this is not a bad place to stop. But I'm going to show you a couple of more charts, that demonstrate how I kind of try to keep track of all these things, and put them into a final number, that you can use to quantitatively evaluate one machine versus another, or one configuration versus another. This is a quality function deployment is kind of what this is characteristically known as. And I'm going to walk through this just a little bit carefully, and then I'm going to show you 3 quick examples of how it's used. To start, you need to decide what your objective is in riding, And this is got no objective yet. This is just a sample. But start then with the alternative bicycle configurations, which you see in the yellow blocks, across the column tops. Now, those are the 5 configurations that I mentioned in the speed test. Fundamentally different configurations. All right. Next, look at the green blocks, the function. What do you think is really important? In terms of having a good time riding the bike, or doing whatever you want to do riding a bike. The functions include things like comfort and performance. And notice I've decomposed those from the white blocks into the green block. Performance being speed, which we've quantified, in the previous charts. Handling is a little more subjective, but you can do that. Acceleration climbing is measurable. Comfort, is an individual thing, but it's very, very much known, after a little riding. And things like mounting and dismounting, step through, and that sort of thing. And there's any number of functions you can add to that. I've kept this fairly small to be manageable. Next is the blue box, the priority. You may find one is more important than another. In this case, I show speed having a priority of 2, which is fairly low. All right. But handling in this example is high at 3, or nominal at 3. Pain control, was a 4 on this one, which is high. All right. And those are variables that you can choose. The main body of the presentation, or the matrix, are the 0s, 1s, 3s, and 9s. Looking at the relative capability of each configuration, for each one of those functions. For example, the upright here, I have a speed of 1, You think that might be unusual, but go back to the speed test we just showed, and the uprights were slower than the rest of the bikes. It gets low capability, right? The Lightning was a little faster. It gets moderate capability. The G4 Sport was a little faster yet, but it's still got moderate capability, whereas the Racer got a 9. You can kind of adjust that if you need to, but that gives you the broad discriminations, right? What this Excel spreadsheet table actually does then is it takes the priorities, and multiplies it by the capability in each one of those boxes, and then summarizes it down the table. So you see below, you've got a weighted cumulative score, for each one of these bikes, which tells you which one scores the highest. But I find it's easier to look at that in terms of a fraction. So the total fraction scored is the fraction of the percentage, if you will, of the total points available that each configuration scored, which goes down to the overall bicycle ranking at the bottom, which says that for this notional application, the G4 Sport was number 1. The G4 Race was number 2. The long wheelbase configuration was 3, the short wheelbase configuration, and the upright tied for 4th and 5th. All right. So this, again, is a way to keep a lot of information going, and you can play with this until the cows come home. But generally, it falls out pretty cleanly is what I found. So to that end, let me show a couple of examples of what I think are my best assessment. And again, I can send copies of this in an Excel format to anybody that wants it. Email it to me, and I'll email one back out to you. But the road sport, my red bike, for example, is kind of what I'm thinking here, an all-rounder. I added performance, comfort, and safety are the three general functions that I think are important here. There may be more, but this is what I have so far. And I decompose them as kind of I've explained today. I prioritized them as I see fit, and I think it's an all-rounder, so they're all of equal priority. And then I ranked, each one of the scores, and the bicycle ranking down below the red score, G4 Sport number 1, G4 Race number 2, tied, in fact, with the Rans Stratus for this all-arounder. Okay, the short wheelbase is a little behind that, and then the upright is reflecting my bias, maybe, but that's the worst in this case. Now let's go from the all-arounder to everything the same, except this is road race, as opposed to road sport. Here, looking at the priorities, all the functions are the same, but looking at the priorities, those are way different. I'm willing to give up a lot in terms of comfort and even some safety. Maybe. But speed is highest in priority. It gets a 5 priority. Handling, acceleration, climbing are both important, but I'm willing to trade those off a little bit too. But going through all that, you can see the bicycle ranking. No surprise, the G4 Racer is the best, and it gets 27%. Now the G4 Sport is at 25%, not too far behind it. And again, you can look at all of the numbers in that matrix, to understand exactly why those scores are the way they are. Here, the Lightning and the Upright, are tied for third place with in this case the Rand Stratus, which was higher, and the last is lower here. You can also have notional sorts of configurations, which this is. Now here I demonstrate that we add other capabilities that are important. For example, maybe it's important for a family to buy a bike and share one bike, so it's got to adjust dramatically in size from one person to another very quickly. Or maybe you want to be able to break the frame in parts so you can throw each half in the trunk of your car or something. Or maybe very low speed handling, and stability, like on a trike, might be important. If those things were there, I demonstrate it as showing the notional capabilities in place there. And in this case, since the G4 Sport scored very highly on those 3 new ones, it scored number 1 overall. So with that, I hope that's a point of departure, for some discussions that, again, we can have in real time, I think, comments, and I'm happy to get email comments back and forth, and I'm happy to send a copy of any of those spreadsheets to anybody that wants to do their own evaluations.
Sounds great. What a great way for folks to kind of plug their own numbers in. If you offering up that spreadsheet, Ron, that's a great idea. So clearly you have some things in mind with the G4 and you put those numbers in, but maybe somebody else just wants to try out some other bikes or, has other thoughts on it. That's a great way to be able to do that. So, Ron, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that very interesting look at what you're up to these days. And we are looking for more discussion on the show here. I'm guessing we're going to get plenty of that now. So with that, thanks, Ron, and we'll see you later.
Thank you, Gary. Bye-bye.
All right, there's Ron. Glad you could join us live today, Ron. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Gary. Again, thanks for having me on.
Of course. All right. Well, let's jump into some of the discussion. We did get some interesting comments and questions here. First of all, from Mike Mowat. So that tail box that you were talking about, what is that?
Well, let me say that the styrofoam and the duct tape is by me, but the carbon part is by Thor, absolutely. And the seat is a Thor seat, too. I've probably bought a dozen of those things from the guy, and give him a little plug. He's done a pretty good job with them.
Good. Okay. And from Yaramir, tell us please about steer tube angle configuration. There's some very unusual steering geometry as it looks, which is really what this is all about. Ron, I asked Trey to pop up the slideshow. Trey, are you going to be able to do that? Let's go ahead and start answering, Ron. I thought maybe you would like to have that chart up, maybe.
Yeah, the sport bike has got a 60-degree steering angle, and it's got about 8 inches of trail. Okay, all for very, very specific reasons. The Blue Racer, okay, has got a vertical steering axis and about 3.5 inches of trail. I think again for very specific reasons. As I kind of said with the Blue Bike summary chart, the Racer summary chart, the vertical steering axis really helped for the low speed stability. I mean, bikes, everybody says a 71 or 72 degree steering angle is a big deal different. I don't buy into that at all. I think that there's some reasons for that steering angle on most bikes. But 60 works really well on the sport for because of just the overall ergonomics and the power input too. But the vertical also works really very well. I mean, having the trail is more important than having the steering angle argument, I think.
All right. I am seeing if I can get this slideshow up.
Yeah. While you're doing that, Gary, what's
good.
Interesting about
Go
this,
ahead. Go ahead.
The Blue Bike, okay, is the indirect steering. Okay. Now, I think Peter has the Linear has indirect steering, under seat steering, so that's not new. But this is a very robust indirect steering. Okay, it's got twin tubes. Okay, and the geometry is a little bit variable on that as well. So you can vary the hand power input leverage ratios, which was important. Mostly because I wanted to learn a little bit more about those mechanisms as part of this effort. But the big deal is you're actually adding hand power to the fork and the crankset, okay, through those steering control rods. And it's exactly this process. So, okay, this is a figure that I developed some time ago, kind of a simplified version of the sport configuration, and it happened to have a vertical steering axis just because it was a little bit easier to understand without the inclined steering axis angle. But this shows the mechanisms of hand power input. Okay, now I would never believe this. Okay, as a matter of fact, when I started building bikes, okay, I always wanted to do a concentric configuration here. A guy named Jeremy Garnett, okay, put together a paper some number of years ago. Did an excellent job, I thought, of characterizing I think he called it the ergonomics of the direct drive bicycle. Okay, he was a big proponent of gearboxes, okay, as opposed to chain drive on these. And he did a great job of laying out all the geometry and the forces and that sort of thing. And I read that paper probably a dozen times. But what he didn't get a chance to do is actually build bikes and empirically understand what was going on, develop them that way. Right? And I don't think he ever quite understood the notion of hand power input. His focus was always on mitigating pedal force feedback, okay? Because and I talked to Mike Burrows about this at one point too, by the way, before he passed away. If you don't control that front wheel, okay, you can be inefficient in your foot power input by having the wheel flop back and forth, left and right in response to your pedal forces. Conversely, okay, if you set the bike geometry up with enough leverage ratio such that your hand power can overcome your feet power, okay, you can actually add hand power input, okay, which is what this chart tries to show, both in terms of work input, that is displacements, and torque, okay, on that front axle. And I guess chart 19 or something, the one with the bicycling science and the Rover bicycle book references. Okay, I mean, it's been understood to a degree, maybe not commonly understood, but that was what Starley said when he invented the G3 safety bike, okay? And that's what Dr. Wilson said in Bicycling Science, in several different issues. So the G4 builds on that, and I think that's a more interesting part of the front wheel geometry.
All right. Let's so Thief Dragons thinks that maybe hand assist or arm power addition is really not that important, because he says with if you can get your back pushed up against the seat on a recumbent, you can develop as much power. You have a comment on that, Ron?
A couple of things on that. He's right. I mean, you can maximize. Let me back up. On an upright bike, if you want to pedal harder, you push harder on the pedals, and before long, you don't have enough body weight, to fully react to your foot pedal force input, and so you're standing up, all right, which is okay. If you want to pedal a little harder yet, all right, you can pull down on the handlebars on that upright bike and kind of push down on the pedals a little harder, all right. And if you want to go faster yet, or more power input yet, you can literally rock the bike. This is an upright bike. You rock it left and right, rhythmically in opposition to your down force on your foot pedal. That very effectively allows the addition of upper body power on an upright bike. And that's just exactly what the G4 is doing by putting the crankset on the fork rather than the frame. We're using azimuth variation in steering as opposed to roll variation in steering to apply that power, but it works exactly the same way. Now, to this question, a recumbent benefits, by having that seat back to react against. So a recumbent can actually maybe apply leg power more efficiently than an upright does, because a recumbent doesn't have to stand first, right? But you still, with a recumbent, it's sort of like you're staying seated on your upright bicycle, and you're just isolating your lower body muscles, right? But when you stand on an upright bike, or when you use a G4, then you've got the ability to engage your upper body, your powerful back and shoulder and arm muscles to supplement those muscles in your leg. A little bit like a Nordic skier. Those guys are really good. At aerobic and even anaerobic power input, because they're using their entire body to propel themselves. They're pedaling with their hands, and they're stroking with their feet too. And that's what the upright bike allows you to do by standing, and the G4 allows you to do by having the crankset on the fork and having the right geometry to control it.
All right. And Don McCall is so getting back to the sport and maybe talking a little bit more about your possible production of a more widely used G4. What's the weight of the sport, at least as you would configure it now?
Let you go back to g4bikes.com, and the speed test has got a full data page for each one of those 10 bikes, and that has the exact weight, within a few ounces, I guess, of each one of those bikes as tested, the G4 Sports aren't real light, they're prototypes, they're developmental prototypes, they're all made out of straight gauge steel tubing. It's 4130, so it's pretty good. It's aircraft tubing, but it's still heavy. I think Peggy's bike is on the order of 30-ish pounds, 35-ish, 32, something like that. But that is a function of these things not being optimized for weight, right? Weight can come down.
All right.
I think go ahead.
I was okay. So Mike Moet has got a point here that we need to talk about, and I think maybe right here, Larry, if we can bring Honza and Peter up to enter the discussion as we fill this out. Talking about the production, Ron, and you and I have had extensive discussions about this and trying to be practical and realistic about it all. So Mike says some builders in the U.S. have done very well just building and selling the recumbent bike designs from their home. Rick Ritter's, John Morsiglio, who's been on the show. These are, I mean, we would have to call them custom builders, not to say that you can't make a living doing that, but I think your ambitions are somewhat larger than that. And so, you know, I guess first, Ron, if I get your thoughts on home building versus going into production and what you've learned so far.
Well, first, I met Rick Ritters out at Waterford. A great guy, built some beautiful bikes, including some streamliners out there. Very impressive. And then John Morsiglio, I've I don't remember how many times I've watched the episode, Gary, where you interviewed him and he talked about those bikes he builds. So very impressive. I think he's probably built tens and maybe even on the order of 100 bikes for sale at this point. Really neat. Okay. Interesting work. I think it's a hard way to make a living. Okay. It's a niche. All right. And those are very high performance bikes that both those fellows are building, as opposed to maybe a more general purpose bike. Okay. But my objectives, I think, as I'm going through this, are broader. All right. I really think G4 bikes are better. Okay, I think a lot of people would enjoy them. I think a lot of people that aspire to ride but are intimidated by the upright cycling seat configuration and everything else that we talked about in one of those charts might enjoy a G4 configuration. And what I'm trying to do is see if there's a way forward, okay, to build a business that might be able to help those people understand the benefits of the G4 and then be able to provide a bike for them, okay, if indeed they want one. Okay. That's a big deal, okay, and that's a high risk, high adventure proposition, and you know, I don't know where I'm going with any of that, but it's an interesting process to explore.
Right, and this is part of that synthesis of your eventual ideas about whether you're going to do this or not, how you're going to do it. So, Honza, I think we can count on you to enter some sober thoughts about what Ron's up to. You two had a lively private discussion while that segment was on. So, first of all, in a factual sense, Ron was speculating as to how many recumbents he thought were made. But I kind of trust your ideas about this, because you are really have your finger on the pulse of the recumbent world. So would you share that first of all, and then give us your thoughts on the G4 and maybe any advice you'd have for Ron?
Okay, numbers. That's a big question still, because some of the big players don't talk about their numbers, but mainly two of them in the US. The other numbers are basically no. So out of the two, I know one number since last week. So that's important for my figures, but I won't tell the exact numbers here, because I'm not, whatever. But my estimation is that there are like 30 to 50,000 recumbents a year produced and sold all around the world. And
just to clarify, yeah, I don't know what those numbers are, but I wanted to put an estimate out there as a point of departure for discussion just like this. But I kind of guesstimated that maybe in the total history of recumbents in the United States, maybe there was only about 100,000 of them. Okay, and that's in 30, 40 years.
That's too low number. For sure. Look at Peter Stahl's nice bicycleman shop and how many bikes he has there.
There has to be 100,000 bikes right behind you.
Yeah, right over here and over there. See the blue Azugs back here.
He's not the only one, and he has been selling them for what, 30, 40 years, maybe, something like that. So
let me clarify again. Sorry to step on you there, Peter, but let me clarify again. I'm thinking about just bicycles. Okay, not trikes. Okay, not velomobiles. Okay, just recumbent bicycles. Okay, and that's a smaller market.
Yeah, I would then talk about it again, but still, I think with all the bikies,
Bikey was, yeah. You can tell the number on Bikey because some of them about 18 months production was recalled, and the SPSC on their website lists, I think, 16,000 bikes in 18 months or so, but
Wow.
that's easy to look up. I'm not doing it right at the moment.
Okay, guys, I don't want to get too hung up on this number. That's not the point of all this, but I did want to allow some clarification here. Honza, so yeah, we are interested though in your thoughts about the G4, the arm power aspects of it. From your experience, what advice would you have, or just give us your thoughts on this?
Well, I didn't have a chance to ride it, so that's the biggest, I can't really talk about it. But if I, so the biggest factor is basically the pedal steer there, how much it influenced the riding, the common riding, because you cannot really sell or start producing bikes only for racing or for speedy riders. So you definitely need the broader audience, which is shrinking now for two-wheelers, but we can hope for better future maybe, but still it's less and less bikes produced, two-wheelers, say. And so the very important point is, how does it feel riding it, ordinary for leisure purposes? How do you feel on the bike and so on? So there are the closest probably are the cruise bikes, because there is at least some pedal steer involved, or there is quite some pedal steer involved. I mean, so the question is whether it's riding the G4 is easier or worse, or how much you feel it. That I can hardly judge, but I can say that there are definitely people that like the cruise bikes, and there are, of course, people that rode them and then switched back to a short wheelbase or long wheelbase standard recumbents, because the pedal steer and also the front wheel drive, because you don't have enough weight. So if you are on a slippery, wet conditions or sandy roads, you don't have the traction when going uphill. So these are all the things that have to be counted in, and the comfort, because it's not suspended, and now it is. Recumbents are all about comfort, or mostly about comfort. So also the suspension is important.
Right.
And I had few questions about the chart and the test, because at least to me the P38 seems to be at least somewhat older, maybe not so good components. And then you compared it with the G4 Sport with Spinergy wheels, high-end components, and then the G4 Race, which with even the tailbox, which gives about 15% by itself, and all the aerodynamic, advantages. So I don't really find it fair comparison at the end.
Good. All right. Before you respond, which I know you really want to respond, thank you, Honza, for that. And Peter is frantically waving his arms. Larry, if you could bring Peter back up.
I'm sorry.
I will not leave you out of discussion, especially I know, Peter, that you actually have put your butt on a G4 seat and ridden it. So before we let Ron respond even to what Honza said, I would like to have your thoughts on the G4 as you know it. Go ahead, Peter.
Well, first off, I think Ron has done an amazing job taking a very unique design and developing it, and I think that's great. And riding his bike, I felt that it was faster than many recumbents, but I'm not that familiar with it yet. I'm sure I would get much faster once I rode it more. I think there's less pedal-induced steering problem, issue, whatever you want to call it, to be learned on the G4 than there is on the cruise bike, which I would say if arm upper body input is what makes a G4, then the cruise bike is clearly also a G4, and there were others in Europe before that. So I think you also might say that all recumbents are G3.5 or something. But, going straight from 1900 to the G4 with nothing in between is a bit of a stretch in my mind, but we'll skip over that. I think he said the big deal with the safety bike is not so much safety. I wonder if he's ridden one. I went over the handlebars on a 5-foot high wheel once, and I'll tell you something. There's a bunch of things about a high wheel. They're bulky, they're heavy, they got to be expensive to build. It's hard to get on and off. They're hard to transport, and they're heavy and slow, but they're simple mechanically. So the safety bike has a lot of advantages, easier to produce, a lot of things. I also wondered how many diamond frame riders ever actually stand up to get the upper body input. I mean, when you see people riding around, they're all sitting down. Mm-hmm. Racers stand up, but most people don't. Mountain bike, I wonder how many do that. And when he said that body weight was important and you overcome that problem, that limitation with the recumbent, well, it's not above maybe 20 or 30 RPM. Body weight is not a limitation because work equals effort times distance. And if you can put say 50 pounds on the pedals at 60 RPM, then you can set world records. You're putting out 7 horsepower or something. So you obviously aren't doing that. So exactly what's happening, it gets very complicated to discuss that. I don't think that, like you say, well, on an upright bike, I've had people say, I stand on the pedal, so all my weight's on the pedals. Well, yeah, but some of it's on the pedal that's still coming up. If you put all your weight in the down pedal and lift your foot off the back pedal, well, I do with clipless pedal. Yeah, no, you don't, because that would be 7 horsepower. That is impossible, okay? Maybe the best sprinter for a small fraction of a minute, but no, that's not something that really happens. And I was wondering how many riders had input on the spreadsheet you developed. I think it's a really wonderful tool, and it would be neat to see 50 or 100 riders ride the bikes and rate them all. That would be very interesting. And I'd love to see a cruise bike on that list also. Now, one other thing I thought of was suppose we take the G1, G2, G3, G4 bikes, all different kinds of bikes, or even manufacturers of bikes, and we say, what percentage of the bikes that have been made by them are actually raced? And what percentage of them that are raced have won anything? Okay. Well, first off, I'd have to say Cruise Bike's doing pretty well because they're a relatively small company and they're kicking butt. They're doing great in races. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, Ron has made 4 or 5 bikes, and he won something. So he's got to be the top of the charts there. But if he had a Lycra jersey on, you could see his rippling muscles. No, I've met Ron. I'm sorry, Ron. No, he's not an athlete, and he's doing pretty darn good. That's amazing.
Oh, the less of an athlete that Ron is, the better his bike appears. Right. Is that your point,
I can insult him all day long and he'll take it to the bank.
All right. Peter,
so
thank you.
I would love to see Ron build a bike for an athlete and campaign it. Yeah. That would be a really telling event. And all the charts and things we come up with, that's all great. But one real athlete campaigning would be an amazing thing. And I think you've come a long ways since I met you, and you'd come a long ways when I met you. I'm looking forward to riding your race version of the bike, and congratulations. I'm looking forward to hearing back from you again.
Honza and Peter, thank you so much for the dosages of realism and interest. Those are great. Those are wonderful. Ron, this segment is going very long, but I want you to finish up, summarize what you just heard, respond if you could in some fairly quick order, and then we'll finish up. Go ahead, Ron.
Well, first, thanks a lot. That's exactly the kind of input I'm looking for. Second, I gotta go back through the show and write notes, okay, and make sure that I understand all those things. But I don't think I heard anything I didn't already expect to hear. Okay, I think all those issues, okay, I've wrestled with already, and I wish we had about 3 more hours here, okay, and we could go through each one of those things and talk them out. So I'm sorry I can't address all of that. Because there's a lot of good stuff to talk about there. The cruise configuration in particular, I think is a wonderful bike. and tremendous respect for crews for doing the production and marketing. And I mean, it's one thing to build a bike, but they built a bike company too. Okay. And that's very impressive. I think that, like I say, there's about 10 things there, and we don't have time to get through them all, but I don't disagree with what I heard, but I think it's an interesting discussion to be had with just about every one of them.
Great. So let's leave it there if we can, folks. Continue your comments and questions in the comments here, and afterwards, when the show is done, in the comments, Ron's always good about following those and getting back to you about it. A fascinating discussion all around about an interesting subject. So, Ron, thank you so much for doing that. Go ahead.
One last thing, if I could, again, the charts are pretty much all on my website already, so you can pull those off through other presentations. The spreadsheets are not, okay? I'm happy to share those spreadsheets with anybody that would like to play with them, but send me an email, okay? ron@g4bikes.com, and I'll get them out to you. And I'd like to maybe, once you've had a chance to think about it, if you've got some input, I'd sure like to hear it. That's my objective here today, is just trying to better understand and do the right thing.
That's a great place to leave it. Learning for all of us is really what this is about. So, all right, we're going to end it there. Thank you, Ron and Honza and Peter. And let's move along then to our next segment. This is about my good buddy Innertuba. So Jon Hodkin and his pal, Nick White, I had a chance to sit down with them very recently. Let's hear what that is all about. We are here with Jon Hodkin, also known as Innertuba to you guys, and Nick White, who is going to be helping Jon on this upcoming tour, which is the subject of this segment. So fellas, hello, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm great.
Good morning. We're doing great.
Good. It's just great to have you both here. Jon, always a pleasure to have you on the show. You're always up to something interesting. Yep. And this is certainly no exception. So we'll get back to you, Jon, in a second. Let's maybe start with Nick. And since the folks don't know who you are, Nick, maybe you can give us a little bit of background on yourself.
Well, good morning. Well, first of all, the only reason I'm on this podcast is because I discovered Jon and his journey plan, and it's like, oh, I've got to meet this guy. I've got to find out who he is. So bicycling for me has been, since my earliest childhood memories, it's been my favorite thing, and did some long bike rides during my younger years. And about 25 years ago or so, 25 years ago, we discovered recumbent bikes. Just due to back issues and so on, I wasn't enjoying biking as much, and I don't even remember how I discovered there was such a thing as a recumbent bike. But my wife and I both got our first ones were Sun Easy One Light, and we rode those for years. And then just a few years ago, unfortunately, my wife fell and broke her leg, and we explored how she was going to continue riding, and she was worried she wouldn't. And I said, well, no, let's look into recumbent trikes. And so we got one for her. It was fantastic. It was outstanding. And then the whole family kind of migrated over. We have a fleet of various recumbent trikes in the family now, and we split our residency. I'm retired. We are in Florida right now. We have kids and grandkids in Wisconsin and in Florida. So we have recumbent trikes in Wisconsin and Florida. And as a result, we can ride 12 months a year. And for those of you that are in the north right now and hearing that, I'm sorry. I regret the cold weather you've had.
Apology is not accepted. All right, Nick, let's move along. You did tell me off camera earlier about some of the recumbents that you have taken in, fixed up, and rehabbed and sold, especially during COVID. Was that the story?
Yeah, that's it, exactly. So COVID began 3 years ago, and all of a sudden there was no place to go, nothing to do. And as we were learning about recumbents, as I was learning about them, I realized there was a market out there, and particularly here in Florida, with I kind of like a rescue dog operation. It was a rescue trike operation, because I would find ones that had been abandoned, under cared for, and so on. I took them in. I had some bike knowledge, some skills, I've gained more. I'm not. I know enough to be dangerous, but over time, because there was a shortage of vehicles that you could buy at bike shops, there was a great interest, and everybody wanted to find a way to be outside. So more and more people just simply were desperate for them. So over the first couple of years of the pandemic, most of it was in Florida, a little bit up in Wisconsin. I managed to flip about 70 or 75 trikes, put them in the hands of people who were discovering the joy, simply able to ride again and hadn't for a long time. And I also met some people, as we all know, who had physical limitations for one reason or another, for whom the recumbent trike was really their savior. So it's all about the people. My background is in education. I was a music educator for 24 years. I did some technology work as a district technology director, but regardless of what it is in education, it's always about the students, it's about the kids and the people, and that's kind of how I feel it is about the bikes and the trikes. And then when I met Jon, I found out that's kind of how he's wired too.
Well, that gets to my last question for you here, Nick. You told us that you had heard about Jon and sound like what he was doing was really worthwhile, and you decided to kind of chip in. Tell us what made you decide. What was it about what Jon does that made you decide you wanted to help out, and what do you intend to do to help him?
Well, first I reached out just to tell him what a fantastic project it seemed to be, and but that also I had the trike background, I had the music background, and I'm retired, so I have a little time on my hands. Just offered to help any way I could, perhaps to link up with potential venues where he could perform and so on. It's a little easier for me to talk to people on the phone than it is for him to cross the puddle on the phone, and also there's the time difference. So I'm just trying to offer my services as a liaison to help him out any way I can. Why did I do it? Because I do things I have a passion for, and Jon certainly lives his life doing his passions. And I have the same ability to reflect back that's kind of how my entire life has revolved around my passions. This is one he and I won't meet in person until somewhat well into the tour, but I do plan to ride along with him for a few segments of it when he's up in the northern half of the trip. And in the meantime, I'm just going to be available to help him online and try to find venues if I can.
All right. That sounds great. Very nice of you to do that. I know Jon appreciates it. Jon, let's start talking about your background first for the 2 or 3 people who are watching who don't know who you are and don't know about Innertuba. Give us an elevator pitch here. Tell us what you have been doing over the last number of years, and bring us up to date on up until this tour.
Okay, so very brief historical background. Innertuba, my cycle touring musical show, began in the year 2000, and it was in 2001 that I migrated from bicycles to recumbent tricycles. And it's really born of the love of the 4 T's, as I call it. I love my tuba. I'm a tuba player. I love my tricycle. I love my trailer, and I love to travel with those things. And I've been cycling and performing and touring mostly through the UK from the year 2000 to 2019. In 2019, I did my first international tour, which took me to the Midwest of the United States of America. I did RAGBRAI, the Register's annual Great Bicycle Ride across Iowa, which was an incredible cycling challenge. And then after that, I started cycling up the Mississippi River to the Quad Cities and a little bit beyond there towards Minnesota. And I played with bands and I did all sorts of community performances as well. But the key to that tour was that from Keokuk, which is in the southeast corner of Iowa, I went up the Mississippi as far as a place called Clinton, and I fell in love with it. I thought this is an absolutely extraordinary phenomenon, the whole river scene, everything about it. And I thought, well, this would make a really interesting journey to cycle the entire length of the Mississippi River doing performances. And so with my trusted sponsors, Connecticut Yankee Peddler and Ice Strikes, as was then, we said, yeah, let's pitch it out and see if you can come back next year, which was 2020. Of course, that didn't happen because of COVID. And then 2021, it didn't happen because of COVID. And then 2022, it didn't happen because of COVID and visa problems and all the rest of it. And so we finally got it together for me to be able to come over again, starting in a couple of weeks' time, actually. I'll be flying out on April the 7th to Chicago from London Heathrow.
Okay, that's a good place to pause here. And we will go into some of those most of those details about the trip, Jon, but let's back up a little bit and talk about the kit. So you did the rag ride trip with an ice trike and a trailer. Why not just use the same exact trike and trailer as you did for rag ride?
Right. Well, it's a logistical thing, really. It turns out that ice trikes have been major sponsors of Innertuba activity for years. And it turns out that logistically, it's actually much simpler for them to ship out a new trike to wherever it's required for me each time that is required. And then the second sponsor, Connecticut Yankee Peddler, as many people will know here, is a very splendid recumbent trike dealer, ice dealer. In Iowa, Sheraton, Iowa, and they then let me use it for a while, and then at the end of that, they can sell it as an ex-demo model. So we don't end up with trikes that kind of nominally belong to Innertuba, not doing very much for extended periods of time, and I get to be able to use the latest kit, which is coming off the production lines as well. So so that's the trike, Ice Adventure HD. Tried and tested, absolutely fantastic for what I do. It's beautifully comfortable, very stable. Doesn't have to be terribly fast because I'm pulling a trailer. And the trailer, that's undergoing big developments at the moment as well. The trailer chassis, which was built for the 2019 Ragbri ride, is proven, and that's great, and that's going to be used again. But we're going for a lighter weight box body this time, and enter third sponsor, and that's TerraCycle. Pat Franz over in Portland, Oregon, manufacturer of all sorts of accessories for trikes, as people will know, has volunteered his skill to building a new lightweight plastic trailer, which is in the process of being completed at the moment. And the weight saving from that is going to be very significant and is going to make the riding much more pleasurable and frankly safer, because if you're towing a great big heavy trailer, there's lots of load and it can, things can go wrong. So so it's going to be a lot more agile, I would say, this time. I carry with me the full sort of independent self-supported touring kit that anybody going on a self-supported touring kit would have: tent, sleeping bags, cooking gear, all of that kind of stuff. And in addition to that, I've got all of the things that I need for my musical show, which the biggest of which is my tuba. But I've also got some pre-recorded accompaniments, musical accompaniments, for which I need to have a speaker, and I need to be able to manipulate all of that with a laptop. And more recently, I've developed a thing called house concerts, and in the house concerts, I actually put on a sort of an electronic presentation, sort of kind of PowerPoint type thing, for which I need a television screen. So okay. I think I'm probably the only cycle touring tuba player who carries a 32-inch television with them as well.
I think that is you might have stopped even before the television part and been correct, Jon. Where do you want to play? What have you got lined up? How's that all work?
Well, basically, there's 3 different sorts of show that I'm offering. And in no particular order, but the first one is house concerts. Believe it or not, I've really enjoyed the success of playing in people's homes, and because by and large in America homes are quite a lot bigger than they are here, to set up in somebody's lounge or front room with my TV and my whole performance show with accompaniments and play pieces. It's a combination of storytelling and with musical interludes, if you like. So that's one thing. So if you've got a house on the route, and the route is very specifically defined, then please get in touch, because I'd love to put on a house concert. And the second sort of broad body of performances is for community venues for people with additional needs, perhaps. So it could be an older people's home, or it could be a hostel for homeless people, or it could be a rehabilitation centre for people who have had strokes or are recovering from alcohol misuse or something like that. Lots and lots of things with kids. Boys and girls clubs and that sort of stuff. So if you've got any kind of interest or contacts with those sorts of people and those sorts of groups, I'm all for it as well. And then the third thing is to be performing as a featured soloist alongside particularly concert bands and brass bands. There's a massive number of concert or wind bands in America. The culture for that is enormous, and as Nick will know far greater than me because he's a retired high school band director. There's loads of high school bands, there's loads of community bands, and there are increasing numbers of brass bands as well. And I've got repertoire to play with basically those two groups that I'm ready to go with. Music that's been written for me, and some of it has been written originally for solo tuba with piano, and then has been rearranged to work with both brass and wind bands. So
Nick, let me ask Nick here, since we just used his name. How would you view someone like Jon coming to play as a soloist, perhaps with a group?
Well, I've already had communication with a number of high school band directors or musicians up and down the river route. They're fascinated by the journey because it is so unique. But Jon and I've now spent enough time together that I think I have a pretty good feel for the breadth of all that he can do. And so he may do a little class for his first performance scheduled now we have at the very beginning of the tour in Boothville, Venice, Louisiana, which is the southernmost community in Louisiana at the very mouth of the river. And he's going to play for the entire K-8 elementary school at the end of their school day. That's his first performance on the night before he starts pedaling. So, it's probably just, Jon can correct me if he wants. To me, it's a little bit larger version of a house concert because it's going to be storytelling. It's going to be giving people the joy of watching and hearing Jon perform. Part of the trip, of course, is during the summer break, which, as Jon says, boy, in the United States, they sure take long vacations. So the schools are out of session from probably June 1st till about September, depending on where you are. So it's a little harder, but we've even got someone up in Minnesota who, during their August preliminary work with the bands, they have evening rehearsals, and we're now linking up in White Bear Lake, Minnesota. And so he'll be there to do a presentation for the bands, even though the school's not in session. So it's gonna light up the band programs is the way I look at it.
Yeah, Nick, let me also ask you this. Jon is more than just a tuba player and more than a performer, and especially for children and especially in schools. He brings a lot to the table here besides just playing tuba for the kids. What else does he teach kids when he is out there performing?
Well, I'll internalize it. What the types of things I think it touched me the most deeply is, as students who are music students know, the payoff is due to something where you have a long-time commitment, a long-term commitment to be a singer or an instrumentalist. And for Jon to have a lifetime commitment to being a brass player and a long commitment to being a trike rider and sharing it. Music in and of itself is great to be able to play in your own home when you want to, but part of the joy is actually sharing it with the audience, bringing it out to the public, giving them something that they just didn't even know they were going to ever experience. And that's what Jon Hodkin is. So it'll be a delight. I can't wait until our schedules and the geography mesh, and I can actually be there in person to see it happen. So again, in the schools or at a rehabilitation center or whatever, there are so many facets to Jon Hodkin, to Innertuba, that he can touch people in so many different ways, and they're going to leave better for it.
I love it. The Jon Hodkin experience, or the Innertuba experience. Yeah, you could maybe call the tour the musical aspects of it that as well. Jon, I want you to react to what Nick said, but before you do, I think this is a great place for maybe you to describe for folks. I don't know if I've ever really asked you this. Why do you do this, Jon? What is it about Jon Hodkin that makes him want to tour around the world and play a tuba in front of people who appreciate it, kids and adults and everyone? Why do you do it, Jon?
Well, I mean, like most of your viewers and listeners here, I just absolutely adore recumbent trikes, and traveling by human power is just an extraordinary experience. The very fact that you can take a trailer that it's too big to even pick up, and you can pull it across a continent with your own human power is a remarkable thing. And it's just an extraordinary sort of combination of engineering and vision to be able to do those things. And I love playing music. And so, life's too short to not do the things that you really want to do. And if by doing those, the sort of very broad message that I want to leave to most of my audiences, and particularly to children, is that I'm not insisting that everybody has to become a tuba player, or that they have to become a recumbent cyclist, or they have to travel anywhere. But the overarching message is to find something that you really love, that you want to engage yourself with and immerse yourself in, to the point that you become really good at it. And then once you're really good at it, you can be more used to society, and you're better for yourself as well. And it doesn't matter what it is. It can be sort of making furniture, or it can be knowing everything there is to know about trees, or it can be conserving things, or it can be, being a weightlifter. It doesn't really matter.
For everyone that's seeing this and hearing this, to know how much it is costing when Jon goes into a school or to a venue. What does it cost them to have you perform, Jon? That's a setup.
Well, thanks to my sponsors. I mean, basically the deal is that I can do all of this if my expenses are covered, basically, and that with generous support is the case right now. And then the shows are free at the point of delivery. But I will be asking for donations, and donations which are made during the actual tour will be put into, you can donate online, and I'll have a bucket and in the way that I did in 2019. People can donate cash as well. And what I'm going to do this time is, rather than having one specific charity that I'm raising money for, I'm going to find examples of not-for-profits and for small charities and initiatives which assist children and young people with special and additional needs right the way up the country. Right the way up the river, up the Mississippi. So it might be that in one place you've got a specialist playground for children with physical disabilities, or in another place it might be that there's a music project going on which is engaging kids with autism, or the next place it might be young adults with learning disabilities in their late teens, early 20s, transitioning from living with their parents to independent living, that kind of thing. And so if you've got a project that you think is worthy of that kind of support and broadly fits that remit, we can consider putting some of the money towards each of those projects. So everybody will get, some people will get $50 here, $70 there, whatever. And the amount of money that's amassed will depend upon how generous people are in response to my playing.
And Jon, so more specifically, when we talk about how people can support you, so on the spot, that's how people will support you. But in general, folks that are watching us now and they want to support Innertuba's Mississippi River Tour, can they go to your website to do this?
Yes, please. I mean, right now, with the amount of money, unless something catastrophic happens with the exchange rates or with inflation, right now I think I've got enough money to do low budget traveling for the entire journey, paying for my cheese and paying for any overnight accommodation, campsite fees and that kind of thing. But there is still room for me to buy some more kit. And up until between now and the first pedal stroke of the tour, any money that's donated will go towards that kit.
What sort of things? What sort of things do you think you could use?
Yeah, right. Well, some of it is to do with the musical side of things. I think some kind of an MP3 player, MP3 recorder would be quite good. I certainly need a television. I need a new speaker. I think it would be good to have some sort of better quality camera, probably a better mobile phone, all of that electronic stuff, maybe some sort of Garmin type navigation equipment. That performance side of things. And another big one is possibly some sort of canopy to keep the sun off me. And that would be good as well. Broadly those things. I had thought about if I'd had sufficient funding for far enough advance to have been able to coordinate it all. The combination of a solar PV to mount on the lid of the trailer. So this is kind of for the future, with a quality probably lithium-ion battery from which I could charge all of the things as I'm going along. Possibly putting it in with dynamo hubs as well. But that's questionable whether that's viable for me to do that, because I don't go very fast. The average speed is about 6 or 7 miles an hour.
And John, just to be very clear, so folks understand, even though you're talking about solar cells and dynamos, you are not going to be electric assisted in any way on this tour. There's no electric motor involved. This is all pedal power from Jon Hodkin, right?
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason for that, I mean, I absolutely think that there's a super place for electric assist, and I'm not against it in any way, shape, or form. But from my standpoint, there's an element of, I don't know, pride in it, perhaps. But having said that, I really, really think that the whole business of being able to go across a continent on human power is extraordinary. Then I want to do it by human power. And the other side of it is that if I'm setting myself that challenge and I'm saying to people, you might want to donate to it because you're supporting something which has some effort behind it. Even if I had only sort of 3 or 4% of the overall energy that went into it was from something other than my legs, then people would go, well, he's not really done it. He's got a motor on there. That's one side of it, and the other one is the logistics of charging and recharging, and what do you do if you can't get the thing charged up and it's something else to go wrong. And touch wood, I tend not to go wrong. I'm quite lucky. I don't get problems with knees and torn ligaments and things, and I tend to be able to keep going, so long as, like a tugboat, I don't overdo it, and so long as I don't try and go too fast. I can plod along all day within the aerobic threshold. So
and do you feel like you are in a condition at this point physically to be able to take this on? How's the training been going lately?
Well, the training's not really happening at the moment. I've got lots of other things going on at the moment, which is taking me away from all of that. But I think I've done enough to be able to cover the miles which I've set myself, and it's nothing like, I mean, we talked about RAGBRAI before, the Registered Annual Great Bicycle Ride Across Iowa, which was around about 475 miles over 7 days. And that was absolutely killing. It was just far too much for me to do, really. And I was on the road for 18, 19, 20 hours a day for 7 days. And I did it. This time, I've set myself a limit of around about 30 miles a day. The entire tour is 150 days, of which 100 are riding days. And on those riding days, I'm doing no more than 30 miles. So I could be on the road at 5 o'clock in the morning and at 6 miles an hour, I could be, home and dry, having done my journeys, having done my day's miles by, before midday.
And this brings us to the actual dates and the route. So let's hone in now on where you're going to be and when you're going to be there, at least as best as possible. So describe, if you would, the beginning, where you're ending up, and at least the states that you're going through, and give me any highlights along the way. And give me some kind of parameters in terms of dates as well as you do.
Okay. Well, the first thing to say is on all the w's.innertuba.org.uk, there is now a published itinerary page, and because of the fact that I'm tying in with bands and so on, it is very prescribed. It's not like most cycle touring where you can just sort of decide that you're going to go that far or not. It is at the end of each day, I've got a place where I need to be. So the itinerary is there. But broadly, I start off south of New Orleans in Bouville, Venice, as Nick was saying, and I go through New Orleans. I'm going to spend 7 days in New Orleans, and then up from New Orleans to Baton Rouge, and I'm spending 5 days in Baton Rouge. In Baton Rouge, we've hooked up, thanks to Nick's support as well. We've hooked up with a lovely chap called Dustin, who runs Front Yard Bikes. It's a community bike project to encourage young people to get involved in the repair and maintenance and building of bikes. And it's a real sort of socially inclusive thing that he does. So, you know, I'm hooking up with them, and I'm going to be doing quite a lot of stuff in Baton Rouge. Then on to Natchez, and then from Natchez, I'm going up the Natchez Trace. I'm deviating from the Mississippi at that point, going up the Natchez Trace, frankly, because it's nicer riding, and secondly, because it goes to Jackson, Mississippi. Whereas,
what's so special about that?
Well, there's a certain Trey Bourgoyne lives in Jackson, who all of your viewers and listeners will know. Yeah. Hi, Trey. And so we're hoping that he's going to introduce me to a whole pile of musical people, because Trey's a trumpet player as well, and community things in Jackson. And then from Jackson up to Nashville. And then from Nashville, I go north. I go back northwest and rejoin the Mississippi River to go to St. Louis. And in St. Louis, I'm featured soloist with the St. Charles Community Band, which sits on the Missouri River, and that's kind of within Greater St. Louis. And I'm going to be there for a week, and then from St. Louis, I go up through Muscatine, Keokuk, up to the Quad Cities. And I'll be in the Quad Cities for about a week. And I'm really looking forward to that, because it's going back to the Quad Cities where I spent the week before. And I've got some dear friends there. And I'm going to be performing with a lovely band called the Big River Brass Band. And I'm going to be featured soloist with them. And we're going to do a video recording of the concert. And it's going to be live streamed as well. Can't remember exactly what date it is. I think it's the 23rd of July. But again, you can find that from the website. And then from there up towards northeast Iowa, and I'm really looking forward to that bit. I'm told that the northeast Iowa and the Iowa-Wisconsin border around places like Dubuque and La Crosse is absolutely stunningly beautiful. So I'm going there. And then Winona, I've got friends there that I'm going to be with. And Lake City, I've got another high school band director who's putting me in touch with some bands up there. I'm going to hook up. I'm hoping to hook up again with the lovely Loudmouth Brass, who I played with in Ragbri before, when I was in 2019, and they're a lovely sort of brass and reed jazz-based ensemble. And I'm going to hook up with them, and then up to the Twin Cities, and then from the Twin Cities to the headwaters of the Mississippi, through places like Stillwater, White Bear Lake, Stillwater, Walker, Lake Itasca, which is actually there's a national park there, and that's where the headwaters of the Mississippi are in Minnesota. And then I end in the nearest town to there, which is called Bemidji in northern Minnesota. And we're hoping to have a sort of celebratory 5 days of things happening there. I'm in touch with Mary, a Warm Showers host there. The Bemidji Community Band are considering what they might do. Even though it's out of their season, they might put together a few players that we can play with. So that's basically it. It's from south of New Orleans right the way to the headwaters, through the taking time out in the major cities on the way, and linking up with house concerts, community performances, and concert brass bands and wind bands all the way up.
And the dates, John. You're leaving when, and when do you get to Bemidji?
Yeah, the start date, my first pedal stroke is on the 19th of April, on the morning of the 19th of April. And I arrive in Bemidji on, I think it's the 15th of September. No, 10th of September, and I'm there until the 15th of September.
Correct.
So the final day of the ride. It is the 15th, isn't it, Nick?
Yes.
Yeah, 15th of September. So that's the entire 150 days, and it does tally up to 150 days.
Fantastic. And Nick, any final thoughts about Jon's tour here you want to share?
Well, for the people that was learning about this for the first time, definitely go to his website. There's a lot to learn about the project. I think, I'm not sure that it's been mentioned that during the journey, most of the updating is going to be on your Facebook page. Is that right,
Yes.
Jon?
Yeah.
But for those people that are inclined, especially those that are along the route, if you can think of any contacts you have that may be music teachers, it could be, all of those venues that Jon talked about, whether it's an assisted living center or whatever. If you have contacts anywhere along the route, take a look at the itinerary and be in touch with Jon about anything you could think of that you could come up with. And then for those of us that just love to get on the road and ride, if you're anywhere close, I don't think Jon would mind having some company riding along with him. No. I certainly plan to do that myself. But at this point, the community of bike trike people is such a great resource that if you're now learning about it or if you've known about it, take a look at the itinerary, see what you can do to support Jon in finding contacts. That's kind of what my full-time gig is right now, just trying to figure out how we can link up with people and make them aware of it, because as we all know, if you don't know what you don't know, there's no chance that you can be a part of it. But if you're watching this now and you know about it, you might have a great role to play and help us out. And it's all for good purposes. And the donations that go to local charities, it's just a beautiful story.
Yeah, well, thank you.
That's great. And and so, if you want to ride with Jon too, I think he will encourage that. As you said, you're not going to get left in the dust, Jon. You're doing 5 or 6 miles an hour. So anyone should be able to pretty much keep up, unless they're toting 2 tubas or something. They should be able to keep up pretty well with you, and that's not very likely. So that's terrific. With that, I think we're going to wrap it up, Jon and Nick. Jon, any final thoughts for us before we leave?
Yeah, just thank you so much, anybody who wants to support this in any way. I'm really looking forward to meeting all of you. I'm getting very excited about the whole prospect of getting on the road again in this, which will be my biggest Innertuba event ever. Do come and be a part of it in any way. But also remember that the itinerary is pretty strict, and so if you live 20 miles off, that's too far. It's got to be on the route, or we'll look towards hooking up with you another time.
Fair enough. Yeah. So the expectations are reasonable here. People can understand what the requirements. All right. And Nick, any final thoughts from you then?
Well, just thanks in advance to all of you that are viewing that might have anything you can contribute in terms of contacts, people that Jon could be in touch with, or venues, or anything you can do to support it. It'll be worth the time.
Great. And folks, we're going to let Jon play this segment out actually with a little piece on tuba. There he is, Jon Hodkin and Nick White joining us live now. So, Jon, very exciting. It's going to start happening for you, I guess, at the end of this week now. You'll start your trip. How about a summary from you, if we could? Tell us about anything that's happened since we did that interview a week or so ago. How's the trailer coming along? How are the plans?
Yeah, well, I heard from Pat Franz of TerraCycle over in Portland, Oregon, just a couple of days ago. No, in fact, it was today, and he's busy. He's received the rigid plastic. I think it's a very, very sort of high grade of Corex that he's using, and he said that it's going to be really stiff, which means it's going to be really strong and bulletproof. And he's made the aluminium frame work with high precision. It's lovely to see that level of skill going into my project. And the panels are going on. Then we get it vinyl coated. And then the great thing is that I'll be flying into O'Hare, Chicago O'Hare Airport, and Dave Hendricks of Connecticut Yankee Peddler is going to come and pick me up from there. And then we're going to drive down the I-80 to the Quad Cities, where I'll meet Nick Propes, who's the musical director of the Big River Brass Band. And for the first time in nearly 4 years, I shall be reunited with my best tuba. And we're going to do that. And then carry on to Sheraton. And soon after we arrive in Sheraton, then Pat Franz is driving all the way from Portland with the trailer. And 2 out of the 3 sponsors are going to be there face to face. And Pat's going to help me to get all of the other stuff that I need together before, again, generously taking me all the way down in his van to the start point in Boothville, Venice. So, yeah, it's involving a significant part of the United States, all of this. It's great.
Yeah, a very significant part. And yeah, we wish the best for you, Jon. This is ambitious. And I know how hard you have worked, the frustrations that you have encountered over the last few years getting this together. So lucky to have found a guy like Nick to help you out, another musician who also rides Recumbent. Nick, thanks on behalf of us for helping Jon out. I know this is something that you feel strongly about.
No, it's a privilege to work with Jon. You know, we share passions, and all of a sudden discovering there's this brass player who's riding an ice trike as I do, and then during my period of a couple of years of rehabbing trikes, I'm high on the mailing list of TerraCycle, so I'm thrilled that they're supporting this too, and so I do look forward to working with Jon. All I can say at this point is, as he said, just trying to build the kit and put as many things together as we can in the last couple of weeks before the trip starts. It sounds it's a fundraising campaign. I guess I'm going to speak on his behalf. If there are any of you that have anything you could contribute at this time before the pedaling starts, it'll help outfit the trip just a little more nicely. And then people, who do you know that's a band director, that's a musician, that works in an assisted living center along the route? You don't have to know the right person, but if you can help us get in touch with somebody who can then make that next contact, that's the thing that I hope to be able to continue to do until he starts and throughout the entirety of the tour. So all of you that are viewing, please take that to heart and don't think that any one contact is insignificant. They're all important. Let us know who we can reach out to and make this trip just a fantastic success.
Sounds great. Yeah, let's engage all the Recumbent community as we did last time for you, Jon. And we're so excited. We'll be following you along the way and hopefully join up with you some point on the trip. Jon, final thoughts?
Yeah, well, really, I'm really dependent upon people like the Laid Back Bike Report to come and report it, because I'm not a videographer. I'm not going to have huge amounts of time to be doing lots and lots of reports and things online. It's typically going to be probably one Facebook post a day. The press and media and TV do take an interest in it, so you're likely to get coverage of it through local radio and local television when they pick up the story. That's my experience so far in the United States. And if you do get the chance, Gary and Trey and so on, to do some filming of me whilst I'm on the road for the Laid Back Bike Report, as you have done before, I'd be delighted, because what you do is absolutely fantastic and you represent me very, very well indeed. Thank you so much for all you do, the whole team.
Yeah, well, Trey's going to see you for sure, so I might ask if he grabs a camera and takes a few shots or something while you're down there.
Yeah.
Maybe we can ride together for a little ways.
I would love that, Trey. Be fantastic. Your backdrop there is the Natchez Trace, isn't it?
Yes, it's right up the road from my house.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to that section of the ride as well, because I'm told it's absolutely idyllic. Lots of beautiful historical towns along it, and the route, whilst it's not traffic free completely, it is for non-commercial traffic, and it's geared for cyclists and leisure travelers, isn't it? Is that right, Trey?
Oh yeah, max 50 miles an hour, no commercial vehicles, not like 18-wheelers and all that stuff, and it's pretty flat, when you get up toward the northern portion, you'll get into more hills, but all through our section, it's really flat. So
yeah. So we'll do some riding together then, and maybe you can film me as we ride along. Yeah.
And if all else fails, John, and we can't get a chance to film you at all, we will just Photoshop you in over Trey's shoulder there and use that shot. It should work out okay.
I'm sure that's
that'll be good enough, I think.
You'll cobble something together, Gary.
I'll try my best. All right, fellas. Thank you all so much. John and Nick, thanks for joining us on the Laid Back Bike Report, as always.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.
All right, guys. Let's finish up then with our update on the Spezi, which is the special bike show that's happening in southern Germany at the end of April this month, actually. Had a chance to talk to the guys who are running it, and let's have a look at that right now. Guys, we're here with three gentlemen who are in charge of putting on the Spezi this year in southern Germany. Fellas, if you would quickly introduce yourself, starting Franz, if you would.
Yes, hello, I'm Franz from Wolf & Wolf. We see us the last time in the last interview, and yeah, nice to meet you, Gary.
Hello, I'm Florian. It's the first time to meet you online. Last time it didn't work, so I'm happy to be here. And my name is Gabriel. We saw us last time. I'm excited for the interview.
Very good, fellas. Well, yes, Franz and Gabriel were on a few months ago as we gave you all an introduction as to what was going to be coming up at Spezi. And now we are just about a month away. So I think the plans have come together pretty well. We really want to give you a nice look at what's coming up and give you all the information you need to attend or find out more. Where is this Spezi? There has been a change since where Spezi had been over the previous years. Where's Spezi this year?
We told you last time we are changed to Lauchringen, a little village at the borderline to Switzerland, near the Black Forest. And yes, we are here now, and we have the opportunity to have a big chance here on this area with more than 27,000 square meters to use for our fair.
So, yeah, when is Spezi this year?
Spezi is every time in the same time. It's always in the last weekend of April. And this year it is at the 29th and the 30th April. So the first very important date is on Saturday, the opening of the exhibition hall, and that will be at 10 o'clock in the morning. And we will invite some political peoples also, and I think it's going to be a big opening of the fair. And it's important to celebrate HTC as well. So it's a new start, but it's our thank you to Hardy again. So this is about 10 o'clock.
I see something about the concert. What's the concert about?
The concert is in the evening. It's a live rock band from our area, and they make sounds from the good old rock music. And maybe you and I like that.
I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, where the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is. So I know a little something about rock and roll. That's my time period. So that sounds really good.
Yeah, we have a really exciting and a really good program of lectures, and we are really proud of it. I think for the visitors, it's really important to get there, at least for one. And we have two in English.
For example, Matthew Galla will one of that, and also Victor
Zicho.
And I think are very, very important and very interesting lectures from them.
All right, so let's talk, if we could, a little bit about the folks that are going to be at the vendors that are going to be appearing and demonstrating their stuff at Spezi this year.
And you can see there are a lot of exhibitors, and we are really proud to get as much as you can see. And there are really a big difference of we have some big companies and a lot of small companies. We have about 35 new companies, so there is a lot to see new exhibitors. And what's not?
We have much more cargo bikes, and that's very interesting. I think the last Spezi in 2019, the cargo bikes weren't very important, but now it's more important. And especially new, there are four-wheeled cargo bikes, and I think that's a really interesting part of these bikes.
Yeah, it's about last mile solution. It's not only for private. It's more for companies or maybe for government.
The authorities.
Yeah.
And everybody of the exhibitors use the possibility to use more space, because we have the options to rent more space. And so we can say in the moment the hall is completely full.
And
that's excellent. That's a goal I'm sure you were concerned about early on, and now you filled up the hall, which is a huge hall as well. Huh?
Yes.
And more than the half of the exhibitors are placed direct to the test track. So they took the opportunity to have only one booth. In the front, you have access to the pedestrian way, and on the back side, you have access direct to the test track.
At this point, guys, why don't we talk about the layout of the area, and then we'll see the test track, and then we'll take a little closer look at the actual test track as you have it as well. We'll start here with the main hall, right? So this is number one. If you could just describe those.
Yes. That's the main place, the big hall, about 5,500 square meters. So it's really big. And there we'll place about 80 booths. So that's the most important part of the Spezi. And you can see the test track is the second important part. The test track is going around the big hall, and you can go inside the hall. So
there's a junction.
Yes, so you can see the black area. So that's the test track, and you can go in. And for example, the green booth, you can see, that's just an example. You have direct access to the test track, and we think we will have about 200 test bikes, 200, maybe up to 250 test bikes. So it would be great to have this big test track. So it isn't any problem to ride with so many bicycles around the hall and on the exhibition ground.
And it's more easy for the exhibitor, because sometimes they are small companies, maybe with one or two guys, and if you can manage it only at one place, it's easier, it's more comfortable for them. But you don't have to go every time through the hall, so it's only a possibility, and you can make some turns and then go back to the booth.
So at previous Spezis, they had like 3 test tracks. They had a human-powered test track, and an assisted test track, and they had a little test track for the kinder, for the children, right? So is there just going to be the one test track, and how is that going to line up this year?
We have one separate test track for kids, that's especially, and the other bikes all on the same test track anyway, with electricity or without. And because we have a test track with more than 3 meters wide, and so it's possible that all together ride on the same test track.
Optional, we have a XXL test track. It's we can close the main street in front of the fair, and this street you can use for a longer round. You can go up the hill, and it's about 1.5 kilometers. So you can really test the bike if you like.
So you can extend off of the regular test track onto the road a bit to kind of
closed road. It's
to a closed road, right? Very important. The next thing I wanted to ask about, which was a feature of the previous Spezi's, last couple of them that I loved, and that is the Inventor Lab, the Inventor tent there. And so you are doing that again, which I think is wonderful. Really gives an opportunity for people that are creating innovation in the bicycle world to show off what they have. Tell us what you have in store here. It will be inside, yes, and who have you got lined up that's of interest? Nobody wants this question. I see.
It's really like the last time. So we don't make a big change. I think that the important change is we put them inside of the hall, and the pedestrian ways are more like IKEA now. It's more like a shopping way mall, and it's really important. The visitor, they will come they will come to every booth. Yes, and so they will find this Inventor Lab, and it's not beside, and it's more important part of the.
It's one of all booths. So
yeah.
And how many inventors do you have coming? Do you know?
About 12.
Okay. All right. Let's get into some of the details of coming to Spezi. Let's talk about tickets. So you can see that right there on the website. You can purchase your tickets there. How much are tickets? And is there anything special they need to know about the buying tickets?
No, there's nothing special. So the standard ticket is 12 euros, and the weekend ticket is 20 euros. Every other tickets are cheaper. So you have special tickets, for example, 4 o'clock p.m. You will have just 2 hours for the exhibition hall, and this ticket will be cheaper.
Good.
For the live concert in the evening, you don't have to pay anything. So if you come later after closing the exhibition hall, you won't pay anything. So it's also a party on Saturday evening. Yeah.
Right. And as I've always said, Spezi is, besides this amazing trade event, it is a festival in and of itself, so that those people who maybe, as you just mentioned, aren't coming to see what's inside the hall, if they come later, they can join the party, basically, and celebrate special bikes with the world at that point.
Yeah. And don't forget, if you book an online ticket, in the price is included the public bus.
Oh, good point. So you get around.
Yeah, it's really, you can about half an hour around here. You can use the train or the public bus to get to your apartment or whatever.
So that ticket includes that. It includes the exhibit hall and test tracks. It also includes the lectures. Yeah. So. So just so that everyone knows what you get for the money. It sounds like a great bargain to me. So good. Now, did you have something, Franz?
You have only to pay your beer.
Right. Alcohol is not included. Yes. How about accommodations? So if you are deciding to come for the 2 days, I would expect, and you'd want to stay over, I know it's a little difficult because it's a small town. What are you suggesting now for people that are watching and say, yeah, I want to come and I need to stay? What can they do?
So I think to get the hotel next to the exhibition place, maybe it's a little bit complicated, but you have different possibilities. So the cheapest possibility is to go on the tent
Campground or
camping ground. So it's next to the exhibition. So you can stay for 1 or 2 nights at this place.
We have a special Spezi shuttle bus to get really fast to the train station. And from there, you have in both directions, you can go more in the east or more in the west. You have a lot of small city and which you can reach really fast. So there are a lot of hotels and apartments. You can reach Basel, for example, in less than 1 hour. And in Basel, you can find a lot of hotels. So you have to check some opportunities, but actually there are enough hotels.
And additionally, we have the possibility to overnight in the community hall in our village for a cheap overnighting.
And bicycling into Spezi has always been something that people have done from all over. So you do encourage folks to get on their bikes and ride to Spezi as well, yes?
Yes, and we want to celebrate this more, and we don't want to close them out of the fair. It should be possible to print out the ticket. You buy it before online, and you can go direct with the bicycle to the check-in, show your ticket, and then you can drive on the test track. And at the place behind of the hall, you have a special parking place for maybe 2,000 bicycles. Yeah,
we call it the Wall of Fame
because every bike there is, it's famous. It's really important to show it to the world.
Right, that's what this is all about. And lastly, I guess we haven't talked about plane travel. If you're coming by aeroplane, as I am, we're flying into Zurich, and then, as you mentioned, that's very close by. That's also what you would recommend to most folks because that's the closest airport, yes?
You can choose Zurich or you can choose Basel.
Basel-Mühlhaus.
Basel-Mühlhaus. Maybe Basel, it's a little bit easier to reach the Spezi, but it's both are about 1 hour with the public transportation.
That sounds great. Well, you guys seem to have thought of everything here. Well, we'll find out for sure if you have in about a month, but I know you've worked very hard to put this all together. Any last thoughts? What have we missed?
It's the first time we have catering and bar and drinks at the Spezi. It's not to make money. It's more to have the solution to stay here and not to go away in a pub or whatever. And so we are hoping it's in the future it will be a important part of the new Spezi.
A connecting place for all together, find new contacts, talk together. Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah, it's not for public, it's more for the exhibitors. We are the Friday before, so the 28th April, is there is a meet and greet. It's celebrating for the exhibitors, and there are food as well. And it's quite important to get in touch.
And for the networking.
And for the networking and for the exhibitors. Yeah, that's new as well.
I might just sneak in there. Yeah, that sounds great. We'll see you all there, of course. Well, if that's it, I think we'll leave it there until about a month from now when we get down there to see you folks and really get to enjoy Spezi again after a few years. It's very exciting and can't wait to get down there. So, Florian and Gabriel and Franz, thank you all so much for keeping me informed as we go here. And it's a pleasure. We are all working for the same thing here, and that's to elevate the profile of Spezi and special bikes. So that's what this is all about. So thanks a lot for joining us again on the Laid Back Bike Report. We will see you shortly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah. all I can say is I think the Spezi is in really good hands now, and we look forward to finding out in person when we get there in a few weeks. So, all right, guys, just as a reminder, if you have something to submit that you'd like to see go on the air, pictures or accomplishments you want to share, just send them to us, laidbackbikereport@gmail.com. We'll see if we can put them on our viewer submission segment. Now let's finish up with the sponsors that have made this show and all of our shows possible. First of all, let's go to TerraCycle. Great parts make great rides. Are you slow and inefficient, like a sloth on a tadpole trike? TerraCycle's power and gearing upgrades will turn you into a speed demon, or at least make you feel like you're going faster than that snail that just passed you. And trailside trikes. If you find yourself in Florida, near the Withlacoochee Trail, or in Knoxville, Tennessee, please check out Andrew's shop and amazing crew. And TerraTrike and Greenspeed trikes. Your vision, whatever it is, TerraTrike has a trike to take you there. And Greenspeed cutting-edge designs create performance through Aussie ingenuity. And Laidback Cycles, the top USA dealer for TerraTrike and the premier source for Catrike, Ice, and Greenspeed. We give you the freedom to ride. And Avenue Trikes, with the gearing you need and the comfort you want, it's time to enjoy riding again. They're in stock, ready to ship, and only $19.95. Dealer inquiries are welcome. And Azub. In addition to the titanium suspension, another technological gem brought to you by Azub is an optional folding mechanism. It's not only easy to operate, but works great and looks fantastic. And Recumbent PDX, Catrike's West Coast Megastore. Schedule your test ride on trikes with pedal assist electric from both Bosch and Bafang, roll-off and schlump component groups, and adaptive builds. Experience the joy of Catrike. And EcoCycles. Adding e-assist to your bent can be a daunting task. With total focus on customer service, the experts at EcoCycles make this upgrade simple and worry-free. Check out EcoCycles today. All right, guys, few announcements as we have been promoting for the last few months. Yes, Trey and I are heading to Spezi 2023 in Lochringen, and we look forward to shooting lots of video and bringing that to you. Our next show is May 21st, so it's going to be a couple weeks later than usual in the month because we're going to be traveling. Once we get to Europe and finish up with Spezi, Trey and I are heading to the Czech Republic, where we're going to visit Stefan at Katanga, and Honza. We're going to have a chance to see him at Azub and show us around the area. So we look forward to that. Should be fun. Then we're heading to Italy and hopefully get a view of a recumbent shop near Venice called Heretic with our friend Giovanni Iapani. So lots of video coverage to come in the coming weeks. We hope you will enjoy it. All right. How can you support the Laid Back Bike Report? Well, if you want to like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, or click this little white eye right up here, you can support us in that manner. And the website on the little white eye that you see above will take you to our past shows and things that are coming up. Also has a link to Patreon, which you can see all these folks right here have become Patreon supporters, and you can do that for as little as $1 a month. Always appreciate it. All right, Larry, let's bring everybody up here, see who's left, and we can say our final goodbyes. So thanks all you guys. It was a great show, another epic length show, but looks like everyone is still conscious, so it couldn't be that bad, I suppose.
Just woke up.
Except for Trey, who was just falling asleep on the Natchez Trace. I guess traffic's not that bad. You already told us that. So, guys, thank you all so much for helping out on today's webcast. So, guys, until our next webcast, from all of us here on the Laid Back Bike Report, so long, Bent Riders.